Welcome back to Sacred Web Connections. I'm your host, Dara Bracamonte. Much love and light to you all.
I want to apologize for not having another podcast out sooner. I've actually been out sick for the last few weeks. I'm so much better now, but still, I do have a lingering cough, so you may hear me mute myself. My voice is a little bit off today, but I'm super excited to get this podcast started, so I couldn't wait any longer. I am so excited for this podcast. I love the topic, and I have a really great feeling about our guest today. But first, I'll start with my quote of the day. Yoga is the journey of the self, through the self, to the self. That's from the Bhagavad Gita. For today's podcast, we're going to talk about the benefits of yoga. This podcast came together perfectly. I was on the hunt for a yoga teacher to join me for a podcast. I happened to like an Instagram post that somebody else had shared, and then I went and liked the page of the original post, and it happened to be my guest's account. So it's called In Yoga Flow. I really like his energy. He radiated a beautiful light when I was looking through his pictures. And then without even knowing that I was looking for somebody to talk about yoga on my podcast, he actually reached out to me directly and offered help with anything I needed. So talk about divine timing and intervention. I absolutely love the universe, and I'm so grateful I'm attracting what I want and need for this podcast venture. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest today, Clint McKay from In Yoga Flow. He is an experienced registered yoga teacher with a yoga school. He does Ashtanga, Yin, Area Yoga, Vinyasa, and you can actually find him on all the platforms, but Instagram, Facebook, you can reach out via web or email. Again, it's called In Yoga Flow. He does have a teacher training course and business, and he is absolutely fascinating. So, Clint, welcome, and thank you so much for being willing to share your love and light with us.
Well, how are we going, Dara? This is wonderful. That was a pretty good intro. Very excited to be here. So this is my first time on a podcast. It's pretty exciting, and I love your quote of the day. It's a great way to get things started.
As I told you before, I know the ladies are going to love, and probably some of the guys too, are going to love your accent. You're from Australia, right?
We are. I am from Australia, so living on the Gold Coast, beautiful little sunny Gold Coast, although it's not really sunny outside at the moment, but it's quite beautiful here.
Oh, one day we'll make it out there. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like, the basics, who you are, where you came from?
All right, no worries. So I've been practicing yoga for about a bit over 5 years now. I've got a bit of an interesting story of where I started and where I'd come from. So it's long. So the reason I came to yoga was from injury, and I came from a stereotypical world where I probably would have never started yoga had I not been injured. I crushed the disc in my L5S1. The vertebrae between those is degenerated and causing serious pain and problems. I was supposed to have a fusion endoscopy, and I say supposed to because literally yoga not only changed my body but changed my life. So that was a pretty exciting thing. Before this, I'd been involved in very physical work, between construction, carpentry, opal mining. I literally dropped out of high school. When I say dropped out, I didn't finish grade 9. So very, very young, dropped out of high school, moved out of home before I was 15 and started opal mining. And it was a very, very western/rural area where I was. My nearest neighbour was 80 kilometres away. So it was quite out far in the western Queensland area. Absolutely loved it while I was doing it. And to be honest, I couldn't imagine my life changing from that. At the time, I thought, this is where I'm going to be forever. And I would have, to be honest, back then I'd never even heard of yoga. Things change as you move along, and, I guess doing things that are detrimental to your health and body, you probably don't realise when you're younger because we all feel like we're bulletproof. Well, I did anyway, let's say. And I prided myself on being a hard worker and doing the jobs that other people couldn't do and doing things probably that were a lot more efficient to do on my own rather than ask for help. So I would do things rather than getting a second person to lift it or a machine to lift it. Back when I was 17, we used to lift 200-litre drums between two guys all the time, just lift 200 litres of fuel on the back of the ute, do things like that. And when I say ute, that is a utility vehicle or a pickup truck. I forget my Australian accent, and our lingo is quite often shortened.
Yes, thank you for that.
I might have to correct a few things like this as we go. I know that we have a habit of shortening everything we say in Australia, and I get these sort of looks when I speak to some of my international friends. So from there, my obviously probably abusing my body and overdoing it for the sake of financial success and the dream that, we're sold from a young age, it brought me to a place of pain where I was taking over 500 painkillers a fortnight. I was living on medication because I couldn't deal with the pain that I was in. And as I said, I was supposed to, the medical profession had me booked in for fusion and discectomy. So if anyone doesn't know what that is, basically what they do is they open you up from the front, they take all your organs out, they remove the disc, take bone from your hip, put it in the front, and a steel plate between your two vertebrae at the back, and screw it all together so that it's in a supported position that doesn't let the L5 and S1 move any longer. It basically fuses it together, hence supposedly getting rid of the pain. The strike rate for these in Australia, maybe in other places it's a lot better, isn't great on the success style of it. Now, I've been spending a lot of money recovering and trying to work through this without doing the surgery, and I feel like when you go down the lines of surgery, well, there's no turning back. And then from there, I know I'm talking a lot, but my physiotherapist suggested me do yoga, and I sort of laughed. I said, come on, I'm the man's man. I'm not going to be doing no yoga. This isn't how it's going to go. It's no way. And my partner at the time, when I drove home from the physio, I had to ring her to help get me out of the car because I couldn't walk. I was struggling big time every day, and basically from having no other options, I decided to try yoga in my living room on YouTube. Things escalated pretty quickly from there because I'm a very results-driven kind of guy, and it was the only thing that actually was giving me relief. I was getting, I'd do 10 minutes yoga and I could actually feel the difference, and that might sound like snake oil or a sales pitch, but I recommend you try it for yourself. We've got to try these things, and not everything works for everybody. Everybody has a different body, and we get a lot of different advice over the time, particularly from the medical profession, and it's all great and well for these people to say to try this and try that when they're not living in pain. For me, the yoga is the only thing that actually made a difference. That's probably 15 years up until the last little bit that's brought me to yoga, I guess. I've been doing yoga for about 5 years. My life prior to yoga was very, very different. And as I said, now the last 5 years from starting from yoga, I started with the intention of just working with my body and trying to heal it. And as I said, with that stereotypical outlook I had on it, I didn't tell anyone I was doing yoga for 6 months. I didn't tell anyone I was doing it. And now I'm the biggest and best advocate that possibly could be for it because it's changed my life, and I've seen it change the life of so many other people firsthand. It's a really, really incredible and interesting energy that's out there. And what's great now is the science is backing it. What yoga's been saying for 2,000 years, science is getting behind it, physios are getting behind it, psychologists, mental health professionals, everyone is getting behind it and saying, you know what, there's science in this and it works. And I just feel like the paradigm shift that's taking place is something that I'm really excited to be a part of.
Absolutely. Oh man, that's amazing. What would you say the percentage of pain you were in before yoga, and then what percentage after?
Prior to starting yoga in general, probably the best way to describe this is every fortnight I would take 200 Nurofen and 200 Panadol, a box of Lyrica, a box of Tarjan, a box of OxyContin, a box of diclofenac, and a box of Celebrex as well. So that's just another anti-inflammatory. So that was what the painkillers I was on fortnightly. be honest, there was a lot of days that I could not get up in the morning. I used to brace myself strongly, like on the edge of the benches to get a bowl out of the cupboard for breakfast. I couldn't just bend down and grab that. It impacted my life in every way. And I don't feel like people really understand what back pain is until they've actually had it, and I didn't. So I'm not saying that it's anyone particular. I didn't understand back pain. I knew people that had it. And chronic pain, you can definitely get used to. You can get used to chronic pain and being in pain. And chronic pain is essentially described as anything that you've had for longer than 6 weeks. And it doesn't matter what level of pain that is. I would say chronic pain for me, if it's about a 5, a 5 out of 10, that's chronic. You've had a high level of pain for more than 6 weeks. The acute pain, however, is something that spikes and is uncontrollable and it'll hit a 10. Now, when you have acute pain, that makes you want to kill people. It really sends in every direction. You can't focus, you can't function, you don't want to talk to people, you're unsociable, your mental health declines. Everything along these lines is dangerous. And to be honest, even the painkillers I was on, they would dull that pain. That being said, some of the painkillers, I describe it as I was teleporting when I was on them, because I would literally have blockouts of 4 to 5 hours at times where I don't even know where I was. I would literally come to and I might be in the shopping centre and I'd have no idea why I was there or even how I got there. One of the times in particular, I walked home from the shops and didn't realise that I drove there. So I left my car at the shopping centre and walked home because I didn't realise, you're so out of it on the medication. When I started yoga, I stayed on a lot of these painkillers in the first part, and I noticed that the pain was starting to die down, and it was literally, when I say how quick it happened, my very first 10-minute session, I noticed relief. Obviously, when I went to sleep, you sleep at night, and you notice that the pain's back. So it took a lot of test and measure, let's say, what classes worked for me. There was a lot of, especially on YouTube, that's where I started. I started doing a lot of yoga on YouTube, and I can recommend some amazing yoga teachers on YouTube, particularly ones that resonate with me. And I feel like not every yoga teacher is for everybody, because some of the teachers, they might have a strange voice, they might have a different way of holding their class. Whatever it happens to be, you've got to find what works for you. And there is, and I can guarantee it, that there is a class and a teacher that is there for you to meet you at your level. I started doing that, and it was slow. When I say slow, I could notice the pain slowly at different times backing off, and it's particularly the acute pain that was backing off. The chronic pain stayed there for quite a while, and I'm not saying I'm completely out of pain, but I am saying I don't take painkillers anymore. It's definitely manageable, my pain, and as I say, if I go and overlift, and if I go and do anything that's super high impact, I am going to feel it in my back, definitely. But that being said, I can do some pretty amazing stuff, and I can function in the normal world. And I still talk about pain, and I'm a big advocate for trying to deal with your pain and your pain levels. And 90% of us are affected by back pain at some stage in our life. The statistics are ridiculous. So now, like 5 years into doing yoga, I've avoided the surgery, so I haven't had any surgery whatsoever. I don't take painkillers. I maintain a lifestyle that is very, very in alignment with myself, my better self, and the world that I want to be a part of. I now don't push myself to try and do things that would be detrimental to my health. The Dalai Lama said it quite well. What amazed him with the world was the way we sacrifice our health in order to create wealth. And then and doing this, we sacrifice our time. And as time progresses, we start to sacrifice our money in order to save time and health. It was something along those lines. And we do such a great job at this, not living in the present moment and putting things off and changing things for what we might say is the greater good or this financial success or what the world determines as success. And now I ask the question, for what and for why? So that we can please someone else. We all do it, and I know I have been responsible for it. And I look at it now and I'm really not so interested in being another cog or another chain link in this societal dream that isn't my dream anymore.
Isn't it amazing, too, like how one thing in your life changes? I mean, we talk about, yoga being this sort of catapult into a whole different lifestyle. Is this one thing, this one good thing you did for yourself has brought you to where you're at now, where you're not taking painkillers. You're in a totally different mindset, I'm sure, than you were, 6 years ago. What would you say for you the benefits are of yoga? Like, how did it help you? Was it just physically? Was it on all of your bodies? How did yoga benefit you?
Yoga has not just benefited me, it's changed my life. It's changed my social circle. So that is one of those things as well, that you can put people off in your life for changing for the better. And people are used to the old you, and I feel like you're under no obligation to be the person you were yesterday. None at all. But we sell ourselves this dream that we're supposed to be this, and we've got to fit this box. And the reason I say that is there's definitely people that not necessarily I've lost contact with, but I'm sure that they thought I was in a bit of a cult, or that, I've changed things entirely. And I definitely have. So it's changed my body, and it's changed my life. It's changed the way I think, the way I feel, the way I do things. And the reason I say that in particular, like one of the little changes, it's not a little change, it's a huge change. I came from a very Christian home, and I came from, my father at one stage was I want to say a priest, but in a different circle, not necessarily like a Catholic priest or a preacher, along those lines anyway. We get the point there. So I was brought up in this very, very Christian home, and had different values and different ideas. And now I would say I'm a very, very spiritual non-believer.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's an interesting way, and I've got reasons I say that. So along my yoga journey, I went and trained in India. And I remember going there, and I remember I went to this practitioner, and she said, you're going to, come across a lot of different energies when you go there, and maybe you should close yourself off to some of those. You don't want to lose this, and you don't want to change rah-rah. And she sort of was trying to tell me what I didn't want. So I was very, not necessarily anxious, but a little bit nervous to what I was going to encounter when I go to India. And I got there, and, at first, they do these chants, particularly in the yoga teacher training, they do chants, they did different, not necessarily prayers, but we did, chanting lessons. At the beginning of an Ashtanga class, there's an opening mantra that we sing. There's all this sort of stuff, and I was like overwhelmed, and I'm going, oh my God, what have I got myself into, rah, rah, rah. And then I started to notice the people that were involved in it. And I noticed the life that they had and the way they dealt with things. And some of them were what I would call super enlightened beings. One of the guys, AJ in particular, he was incredible. I would look at this guy and I just have a complete awe and an idea of, wow, this guy's switched on. He's wise beyond his years. And I was looking at what they were doing. I started looking, and they talk about in yoga a lot of searching for truth. And, the idea of believing something, when I look at it now, believing is essentially saying that I'm willing to accept what I do not know, which is fine. And that's great for a lot of people. For me, I would rather know the truth, and I want to search for the truth. That doesn't mean that I'm right or wrong, and it doesn't mean that anyone else is right or wrong. But I believe that there's actually enough proof in the world for everything. Doesn't matter what it is. You might have to take a little while to find it, but there is enough proof out there. So the way I say I'm a spiritual non-believer, I have ideas and I have a lot of different thoughts. And I think it takes an open mind to be able to entertain any idea without having to be sold on it, without having to take it in as 100% fact. And again, the reason I say this is, if we come back to truth, I know we're probably getting a little bit off topic. If we come back to truth, it has to be agreed on 100% of the time. And there's very, very little real truth in the world. There is agreed upon truth. There is perceptions of truth. There is a lot of these things, but a lot of it's borrowed information. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, everyone believed, and it was fact, that the world was flat. Now with proof and with technology and things, we know for a fact that we were wrong. And I think it takes a really, really special mind, and there comes a point in everyone's life where if you're presented with information that contradicts what you believe, it takes a very, very, not necessarily intelligent, but an open mind to be able to drop your previous beliefs and move on to something better. Whereas I know, and I've seen this, don't want to sound too detrimental to some of the religious leaders that are out there, because there's so much great information and there's a whole lot of good ethics and good ideas and good ways of life out there. But if you're presented with information that contradicts what you've been teaching or selling, it's very, very difficult for some of those people, particularly if you've been selling it, contradictory information that might be true, to even accept any of that. If you find, for me, if I find something, if somebody comes to me and says, listen, what you're doing with yoga is completely ridiculous for this, and this reason, I'm going to have to really, it might be very hard for me, but I'm going to have to stop what I'm doing, take the time to research what they're actually saying, because just because I'm sold on that now, that doesn't mean I'm right. For my life, and I feel like, as I said, science and everything in my experiences are true, and that everything's getting behind it. But if you find contradictory information and there's fact or logic behind it, you kind of have to look into that. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, and we talk about it a lot in my classes. I do Reiki classes, but it's what I teach people is you got to figure out what resonates within you. You know, like if you hear something, if you read something, if you are talking to somebody and they're talking about ideas, if it resonates, whether it's along your belief system or not, then maybe that's your truth. You know, I mean, I truly believe that everybody has their own truth, and that whatever your truth is right for you. It doesn't have to be right for anybody else.
Exactly. And the best way to describe that is, I can't tell you to be hungry, but you know when you are. It doesn't matter whether you haven't eaten for 2 days. I can't say, Dara, you are hungry. You can say, no, I'm not. I haven't thought about food for 2 days. I'm just flat out busy. I haven't thought about it. I'm not hungry. So that's your truth. I can't tell you that, and nobody can tell you what your truth is. But I think that's a perfect example of that when we look at it, that we've all experienced it. People say, you should eat some lunch. I haven't eaten. Well, I'm not hungry. And in their mind, whether they're right or wrong, they're hungry, so you should be eating, you know. From your previous question with that was, what's it achieved in my life and the way it's changed it? I would say in every possible way. I used to be, I'm going to say, closed-minded. Now I'm very, very open-minded to everything. My body's my temple at the end of the day. Apart from my yoga mat, my body is my temple, and I spend a lot of time in self-care. I practice a lot, and it changed the way that I do think and feel. And I feel like feeling is what you get for thinking the way you do. That's a really cool statement just to think on at stages, that we're ultimately the product of our own thoughts, and we generally don't think that clearly, and we don't think enough. And the reason I say that is we all think, and we all know we think, but how many of us actually take time to clear their mind, center their thoughts, and come back to the one reason? You know, we seem to have this monkey mind that bounces around from idea to idea, and we go, that's a great idea because somebody else has suggested this, and you're using that other people's information. Whereas with yoga or meditation or whatever it happens to be, when you're forced to become present, you can clear your mind and you actually start thinking clearly. The perfect example for this is, I find that most people, and everyone can relate to this, you've had a great idea or really thought clearly, it might be in the shower. It might be you wake up in the middle of the night with this amazing idea, and those times you should write it down, or any of those, because you're actually present enough to think clearly. You know, you're in the shower and you just sit there and you're relaxing and you're just enjoying that water wash over you. You're not thinking about your taxes in most cases. You're not thinking about work or any of those things. And this is what yoga does for the mental side of it. So for your mental health, which resonates with everything you do. Your mental health is going to be detrimental to your physical health. The research is out there now that stress is one of the biggest killers, and your body realistically rebels against stress. and yoga de-stresses from there. So you're lowering your stress levels, you're lowering your body's your body's whole stress level in every way, physical, mental, and you're changing the way you do everything. And at the end of the day, a lot of the practitioners that you can go to, and my mother's a kinesiologist, and I said to her, I haven't seen all of the science there to see how it all works, so to be honest, I can be a little bit skeptical at times. However, I can guarantee that it definitely helps. The reason I say that is even if what she's doing does not work, I'm just saying even if it doesn't, and I have seen results from it, you're spending an hour in complete relaxation, and you need it. So spending that 1 hour in complete relaxation will change your body and your life and your world. Whether the practitioner's doing anything or not, if you get a chance to relax for an hour, you're miles ahead of the game.
Absolutely. I mean, that's huge. People don't usually take the time to do that for themselves. And we do that with, Reiki sessions and energy healing sessions. I'll get a lot of clients where their partners or their husbands are completely skeptical, and they're like, this is bullshit, it doesn't work, and you're charging for basically doing nothing. And, although I fully believe in what I'm doing, obviously I wouldn't be doing it. What I tell them is, but so what? Do they feel better when they come out of the session? Oh yeah, 100%. Okay. Are they feeling better throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the whatever time frame? Yes. Okay, is it working for them? Yes. Then so what? Who cares?
Results driven, and this is, whether there's science there, I mean, we can easily get behind things when there's science behind it. That being said, if you feel the results, if the results work for you, I don't care what it is. If you happen to do something that makes you feel better, do it. I mean, there's a point there, because I shouldn't say that if you're going to eat McDonald's all day and sit at the cafe, that's probably detrimental to your health. It might make you feel better temporarily, but I feel like we don't spend enough time doing things we love. And something I've been speaking to a lot of people about this, and so yoga is just this perfect way of integrating stillness into your body and into your mind, presence into your body and life, and changing the way you think and feel. And it doesn't matter what it is, but I feel like we all do the same things we love, for the same reasons. To be honest, sex is a perfect example of this. How many people are thinking about doing their tax or work while they're doing any of these things? The reason that this is, in my humble opinion, is we are forced to be present, or we are actually present when we're doing what we love. Whether it's forced to or whether it just happens to be there, you're actually calming your mind. There's not a lot of people, and I can guarantee that while you're doing art, you're not thinking about paying bills, you're not thinking about, the future, you're not thinking about the past, you're doing what you love. And it's the same for whether you go to the gym or whether you skydive or whether you do yoga. And I feel like we don't do enough of this in this world because we have that external pressure that we have to succeed. And we spoke about this earlier as well, that success is defined, and we define it in a way that the world sees fit. And I feel like we've got to change this. We've actually got to change the way we define success, because it's not working for us. There's not a lot of people in this world that the 21st century idealistic success is actually working for. I had a friend actually sadly commit suicide a few years ago, and from an outsider looking in, he had an absolutely beautiful girlfriend. He had a brand new Mercedes. He had brand new this, brand new that, had the house on the water, had all of this stuff, but it wasn't enough. From an outsider looking in, you go, this guy is the epitome of success. He's got it going on. He's young. He's got everything going on. And I'm sorry, but that's not a definition of success. That's what the world sees as it, and what we're conditioned to see as success. Whereas I would rather have nothing, absolutely nothing, and be able to enjoy the present moment. And I feel like if you can be content, consistent, aligned, and there's a few things that I feel like for conscious living you really need, and one's acceptance of the things you can't change. if we can accept and fully be present and accept, doesn't matter what the time is or what you're going through, and be present for it, you're already halfway there,
Yeah, and like you said, your mind's so much clearer, so you get those answers almost immediately, through your intuition, through your higher self, through your, intellect, whatever it is, you're getting the answers because you're being still enough to get the answers.
100%, 100%. And everyone has their own different ways of finding it. And for me, I find that the special thing with yoga is it can meet you where you're ready to be met. You don't have to go out and push super hard. You're not going to a HIIT workout. You're not going to, whatever it happens to be. You're not running. You're not joining, some of these things. And they're great for the individual and for the person that absolutely loves that. For me, I'm not a runner. I would die, and I would probably hate the whole process of running. I've tried it in the past, and it's not something I enjoy. And part of that, I feel like, is we're trying to meet the event, the exercise, the moment at its place, whereas yoga is there to meet you and your body where you're ready for it. There's, you go to a class, and like I've been teaching for years, and I went to a beautiful class this morning, and I just felt like giving the woman a big hug. She did such a great job. And she had a couple of students. It was only a small class. And so it's quite difficult to cater for students where you might have some relative beginners and then some advanced students in the class. And she met all of us where we were ready to be met. Some of the things I was doing there, we were practicing forearm stands, whereas others were practicing. The whole class was changed. And the way that works, and there's what I think is special about yoga is there's no judgment at all. And I feel like people have this stereotypical look of what a yoga student looks like and how you're going to turn up to a class. I know I did. When I first started yoga and I practiced at home, I thought, I'm not going to be that guy that turns up and hangs out in the back of the yoga class in tights. I didn't think at the time that you can actually just turn up in shorts. But that was the outlook I had on it, And I feel like the way that yoga meets your body is really, really special. It meets your body, meets your life where you need to be met. So it's, as I say, that stereotypical look of what you've got going on in your head. And there's no judgment. There's no, people turn up, and I take the time now to speak to each student before they start and say, just so you know, nobody is watching you. They're focusing on what they're doing, and everybody is here to look different. We shouldn't look the same. We all have different bodies. We all have different strengths and abilities. I struggle with some things, and I see beginners able to do things that I am not able to do. Then there's other things that I can do that, experienced yoga teachers would dream about. Like the whole world changes, and now, and I remember my gurus when I went to India, I was looking at them, and they're doing things, and they'd say to me, all right, so we're going to do this now. And I'd look and go, show me, because I actually don't believe it possible. And they would go above and beyond what I would think is possible. And now I'm doing the same stuff. And at the time I was so far from being able to achieve any of it that when I could actually achieve it, I was really, really stoked. The other thing, when I say being able to achieve big things, I feel like one thing none of us do is celebrate the small victories.
Yeah.
We all see this, and particularly with the Instagram, Facebook, all of these things that are out there, no one shares their failures. No one shares the imperfect pose or anything like that. You see people doing these ridiculous things. You don't see the 10 years practice they put into it prior. And we don't give ourselves a pat on the back for doing more than we did yesterday. We don't give ourselves a pat on the back just for turning up. I mean, just for turning up is not enough in this day and age, but we should. I feel like making that right decision, and I see it for a lot of things. People that say you're trying to lose weight and say you're 20 kilos overweight, people celebrate this milestone of I've lost 10 kilos. No, you should give yourself a pat on the back and say, you know what, I didn't drink that can of Coke today. I went to drink it, and I pulled away from the fridge, and I didn't do it. That's a victory. That's something to me that I feel like if you start celebrating these small things, give yourself a pat on the back and go, you know what, I'm making change. I'm doing the best for me. You're going to make hard things easy, and this is, again, comes back to it. Yoga gives you the opportunity to attempt things from a place of ease where we make hard things easy, rather than attempting from a place of stress where we make easy things hard. Now, say you're that overweight person that has that 20 kilos to lose. If you go into the gym and you go, I have to lose 20 kilos, that is a huge goal. In anyone's book, that is a huge goal. But if you go in there and say, you know what, I'm going to do my best and I intend to lose 1 kilo and I'll see where I go from there, you'll probably find it quite easy. You'll probably find, and I'm not saying in every case, but you'll probably find losing 1 kilo will happen quite quickly. And if you can attempt losing a little bit or making a change, and you've got to remember, and this is getting again a little bit off topic, if someone is 20 kilos overweight, you didn't put it on this week. You didn't put it on last week. It might be 15 years of having that Coke when you shouldn't have it, eating that, whatever it happens to be. It's generally not all of these once off, and sometimes I get it does happen, but generally you don't make progress in any direction, whether it be a good direction or bad direction. It doesn't happen overnight. So I feel like with weight loss, with yoga, with fitness, with any of these things, mental health, small decisions, small victories, if you can consistently move, if you can consistently turn up to the yoga mat twice a week, that's a huge victory, and you're going to see change because you've started to consistently make decisions in the right direction. If you consistently make the decision to not turn up to the gym or to not turn up to yoga or to not do these things, I mean, you can only guess where your body, your life, everything's going to be. And I feel like this happens a lot in the 21st century, and it is hard. But if we celebrate those small victories a little bit more, attempt it from a place of ease, and go through from there, we can sort of make real change in our lives. And this is something we're based, so the yoga teacher trainings that we're running in Bali this year, I'm very excited about. And we've created the whole program on creating a sustainable yoga lifestyle. And that doesn't mean that you're going to turn up to yoga every day. That means that you're not going to judge yourself and be hard on yourself if you don't. That means you're going to intend to do things. And I see this, we do this quite often. We all get to New Year's Eve and we make this great big New Year's resolution, whatever it happens to be. You're going to quit smoking. That's a pretty common one, whatever it happens to be. And I feel like when you fail at that, because it's a pretty big deal, when you fail at that, you're very, very hard on yourself. And we all do it. We've all set goals before and you're hard on yourself and you get down and you're detrimental to your mental health because you're hard on yourself in that way. Whereas if we set, rather than a goal or a resolution, if we change it to an intention, that I intend to do more for my mental health, my physical health, my whole body health in general, whatever you want to intend to change. If I intend to turn up more to the mat, you know what, when life gets too hard this week, I'm actually going to be better off that I didn't turn up to yoga, because even though I intended to, I'm not going to be hard on myself or judge myself over the top for not being there, because I didn't set a resolution. I intended to, and with intentions, it's okay to fail. And when it's okay to fail, I just put a post up on my personal profile this morning of I was practicing handstands. And I feel like when you attempt things from a place where you're willing to fail, where you're willing to fall, but you attempt it in a playful manner, you're going to achieve more. You're going to achieve more and a lot faster, rather than being hard on yourself, saying, you know what, I didn't nail that today. And some of these goals are big. Like I was attempting a one-handed handstand, so moving from a handstand into a one-handed handstand, and I fall out of that every time. Sometimes I fall on my face, sometimes I fall wherever I fall. But I'm not judging myself, saying, you know what, I have to get this today, or I have 6 months to get this. I've got the rest of my life to get it. And there's no reason that I have to get it. It's just something that I want to do, so why be hard on yourself?
Right, yeah, it's for fun.
That's exactly, and the whole thing with this life we live in, none of us are going to get out of this alive. So why do we take it so seriously? We put all this external pressure on ourselves when we're not making it out of life. History's shown that. There's no one that, I'm pretty sure that 100% of people that eat a healthy life, that lead a healthy life and only eat fruit and vegetables and drink water, they're all going to die too. So the difference is the quality of life we live while we are alive.
Yeah, the measurement shouldn't be that financial number, it should be happiness. Like, how happy are you? If you're not that happy, there's some things you can do, like yoga.
Yeah, I feel like this conversation needs to be opened up to a lot more people. And I do it, and people probably think I'm very strange because I like to ask people some deep questions. One of them is, straight up, I like to ask, are you happy? And, the majority of answers, and the reason I do it like this is because I like to ask them on 2 occasions. So, are you happy? And answers I usually get are, yeah, of course I'm happy. Oh, that's great. You've got a partner? Yeah, I've got a partner. And are you in love? Of course I'm in love. Oh, that's great. And what do you do for work? Oh, whatever it happens to be. I'm a builder. I'm an accountant. I'm a whatever. And do you love what you do? And the answer is always, yeah, of course I do. Yeah, it's a great job. If I get to know them, I'll absolutely ask the same questions again. When they're generally, I like to ask it when people are a little bit down because I get a different answer, or when they've had a few drinks. And so if someone's had a few drinks and I say things to them like, are you happy? And the answer usually comes back as, ooh, I don't know about happy. I have moments where I'm really happy and, I'm pretty stressed. And are you in love? And a lot of the answers I get there are, I love the person, but I don't know about in love anymore. And I feel like that's really sad, but it's the truth. And when you come to, do you love your job? The majority of people go, well, pays the bills. So the answers, again, we say these answers, and I feel like that's because that's what society actually wants you to say. People don't, and how many times we all say it, I asked, you ask someone how they are, and then they told you, we didn't really want to know. And we all jokingly say that. That doesn't open the conversation for people to be honest with you and be real. Maybe somebody actually does need some help. Maybe, when you say, and are you happy? Well, I want to know. Well, actually, no, I'm not. I'm actually miserable. Well, maybe I've got some ideas of things that have helped me in the past. Maybe they'll help you. Whatever it happens to be. And I feel like the world we live in is favourable for people to put on this external show for happiness. And I mean, this is what I said before with the social networking. It's very rare that we're acceptant of people putting out their failures or showing that they're miserable. And I do get that the conversation is definitely changing, and it should change, and I just hope it happens faster because the world's intense and the world's changed every day. And I feel like something I've mentioned quite often, and I had a friend of mine, he spent 3 years living in a Osho ashram, and it was a really interesting topic. We spoke about this a lot, and living the stereotypical yoga life where, every day's a breeze, I can't get enough wind in my hair, life's there, this, that, and the other. I've got the time to do an hour meditation each day, I do all of the cleansing, I do yoga, all of these things are great. And if you can fit them in, that's amazing. But from what I've seen, unless you're living in an ashram, that's not the 21st century. We don't get that opportunity to spend all of that time. So when it comes to developing a sustainable practice, and this is something I'm very passionate about with what we're doing in our yoga training courses, is giving people the opportunity to see a way and find a way that you can actually incorporate this into everything you can do. You don't have to sit there and meditate for an hour. Let's try and find 3 conscious deep breaths per day without thoughts. If you find yourself getting stressed or over the top, count your breaths, listen to your breaths, change the way you do things. Rather than sitting on the lounge watching TV, why don't you sit on the floor? There's options around all of this. Like, it's only just recently that I've rebought a lounge. I haven't turned the TV on in about 4 months, but I generally sit on a yoga block on the floor. If I'm watching TV, I generally sit on a yoga block with my spine straight. The science behind showing, elongating your spine and sitting up straight shows that you'll increase your mood, you'll increase your health, you'll increase everything. The science is there proving that. And there's simple things that we can do in our life right now that are available to all of us for free is incredible. And I feel like we all do want a quick fix, but there really, from my experiences, there's no quick fix to health. And I see this a lot, that we need to open this conversation and let people know that you can't take a diet and make it work. You can't take a fitness regime and make it work. You need to create a lifestyle that you enjoy that is going to work. You know, if we all have a diet, it might be a really, really poor diet, but we already have one. So let's find things that are going to work for you and, you know, based on the life you live. If you're working 10 hours a day and you're commuting 2 hours of that day to and from work, it's probably unrealistic to think that you're going to cook a healthy meal each day. You know, cook 3 healthy meals. I feel like you need to find a way to make it healthy and find something that you enjoy eating rather than, you know, buying McDonald's on the way home from work because it's easy. You know, unfortunately, the easy way is not generally the best way, and
it's also the cheapest.
Yeah, unfortunately, finding that cheap and easy way is not the best way, and I feel like if it's worth it, it's not going to be easy, and if it's easy, it's not going to be worth it. So it's that double-edged sword, but finding the way we do things and the way we change and the lifestyle that's able to suit you. And a friend of mine said this recently, and I absolutely loved it. You know, quite often we define ourselves by the people we surround ourselves with, and that's always the way. You know, if you're a thief, you're not a bad, and your friends are thieves, you're not a bad guy at all. You're only really a bad guy when you get caught. Then you're a bad thief. So we define ourselves by the people we surround ourselves with. And I feel like my friend said recently, we can't change our friends, but we can change our friends. To me, I thought that was really, really great. And you know, we shouldn't have to just drop our friends and move on. But in order to elevate our life and change for the better, sometimes we have to do these things, and it's necessary. You know, again, it comes back to we're not obliged to be the person we were yesterday. If we want real change in our life, sometimes it's going to be hard choices made gradually. Things generally happen gradually and then all of a sudden, suddenly. I've had a very different life, but I'm not an expert on anything, rather. And I mentioned this before we started the podcast today, that I don't really even like to be called a teacher, or I definitely don't like to be a guru or anything along those lines. I'm happy to be a guide, and I'm happy to be there for someone and share what's worked for me. I can't guarantee that it's going to work for everyone, because this is my life and my experience, and the amount of millions of present moments that had to take place for you and I to be having this conversation today is incomprehensible. You know, the synchronicities that we're aligned with for this present moment to be happening. You can't script that. You can't plan that. And I feel like people feel like they're actually in control and can influence the outcome. And it would be nice to think we can let go of that idea that we can influence the outcome, because in a lot of cases, what's going to happen is going to happen anyway. All we can do is be present and enjoy the ride, and remember that this too shall pass. So it's quite interesting.
I do have to ask you, you talked about your body being your temple, and I think a lot of people fear, they fear change, and that's pretty normal, but I think people fear that if they start a new lifestyle, that they have to fit sort of every piece of that lifestyle. Like you said, showing up to yoga class, you thought stereotypically you'd have to show up in, yoga pants, and who wants to see that, right? But I think people are scared of, I'm kidding, but really, people are scared of making such big changes in their life and sort of losing themselves in a whole new lifestyle. What I love about what you're talking about is incorporating small changes gradually to fit what makes you happy and what makes you feel good. My question to you is, do you always eat healthy, make healthy choices 100% of the time, or are you human like the rest of us?
Absolutely human like the rest of us. And I find this very, very interesting. And this comes back to that, unless you're living in an ashram, it's very difficult to maintain that. That being said, all we can do is make the best of the life we have. Now, I say that because I meditate, I practice yoga, I practice mindfulness, I do a lot of these things that are really good for us, but I live in the world and sometimes I still want to punch people. so I say that in a light-hearted fashion. Now, the reason I say it like that is you've got to be realistic, and to create a sustainable life, and this is what I really work with in my yoga trainings, and I try and share this as much as I can. Be realistic. I used to drink quite heavily. I still have a drink here and there. I definitely do, and I'll still go to parties, and I will still definitely probably have too many at times. But that's not who I am every day. I don't have to do that every day, and it's definitely incorporated into my life that, you know what, I don't need to drink for the rest of the week, and I don't have that need that it has to be a thing. I eat as healthy as I can. That being said, I am human. I live in the 21st century, and you know what, I live on my own, and to be honest, it's not that much fun for me to cook for myself. It's not something I enjoy. I try and make healthy choices. I try and do all these things, but I'm not hard on myself if I fail. That being said, I do feel like yoga is the missing link. So I spend a lot of time doing this, and I feel like it's the missing link to health. And the reason I say that is I've been practicing a lot for the last 5 years. I practice somewhere between 40 minutes and 3 hours a day. I know that's unachievable for the majority of people, especially in the 21st century we live in. The reason I say that is the amount I practice yoga, and when we practice yoga, we breathe differently, we turn our body into a more alkaline state, which, you know, at the end of the day, sickness doesn't grow in these states. I practice some special breathing techniques that do actually, and are scientifically proven to make your body alkaline. And the reason I say that is I haven't had a day off due to sickness for 5 years. I have family and I have friends that I would say should be the epitome of absolute health. Now, I look at the way they eat, the way they drink all sorts of filtered waters, and they have all of these special things and regimes they have. They take supplements, they take all of these things, they live a healthy lifestyle and are quite often sick. And I'm definitely not saying I'm above that. What I am saying is that I feel like with yoga, your physical health is going to influence your general health and well-being, your general health and well-being, and I feel like your mental health that you achieve from that definitely influences your physical and overall general well-being. So the reason I say that is I practice enough of that I can probably afford to not eat healthy every meal. And I know that sounds terrible, but at the end of the day, I live in the 21st century. I can make time for this, and I am definitely human. I try and make the best healthy decisions in general, but again, we're human. And unless you live in an ashram 24/7, which would be an absolute dreamy life, I think it would be amazing, it's not really logistical or realistic to think that you can run away from the world and maintain a life where, you know, I can stay in contact with my friends and family. I can stay in contact daily with my children. I can do all of these things and live in an ashram. That's not really realistic. And I feel like we've got to have that honest conversation. What can you fit in your lifestyle? You know, are you the kind of person that likes to wake up early? If you don't like waking up early, I don't recommend going to a 5 a.m. yoga class, not at all. Do you think you're going to enjoy driving to a 5 a.m. yoga class if you don't like getting up that early anyway? Probably not. So if you turn up there from a place of, what am I doing going to this yoga class at 5 a.m., you're not achieving anything. Not at all. If you feel like you can sneak in a yoga class in the middle of your day where, you know, you might have a lunch break and say to your boss, listen, I'm going to sneak out to a yoga class today and I'm going to skip my meal, whatever, or eat my meal at lunch, and you're just going to have to deal with it. I would recommend doing that. You know, yoga classes run all day, whatever it happens to be, but I don't recommend going to something that you're not motivated to be at. If you don't feel like, and it's not just yoga, if you do not want to go to that HIIT class, but somebody's recommended go to the HIIT class, it's going to be the best thing that you could ever do for your health, for your well-being, Do not go if you do not feel like that's going to be in your best interest. If you've got a headache, do not go. When I say do not go, I feel like for me, I have always tried my best to commit to anything that I'm a part of. I trained martial arts for the best part of my life, and even if I had a headache or I was sick in the past, any of those things, I committed to it, so I'd turn up. And my intention of turning up has been there for me my whole life. Just show up, do the basics. Even if I turn up and watch, if I'm watching, I'm learning. If I'm watching or turning up, then I'm keeping that consistency and my commitment to at least turn up. And usually end up doing more anyway. You end up doing something. Even if you turn up to watch a yoga class and you spend the whole time in child's pose, at least you're doing something. And I feel like doing something, whether it's 2 minutes a day, that's better than doing no minutes a day. Again, that sustainable sort of lifestyle and sustainable world that generally the majority of us don't live in, that's got to change. I feel like nothing changes if nothing changes. If we go deeper on this, that nothing changes if nothing changes, you realise again we come back to the make small victories, make small choices, it doesn't matter what it is. You know what? You're sitting on the couch today. Can you actually do something else while you want to watch that news program? Go for it. Is there a way that you can position your body that's going to do more for it than sitting on the lounge? And, it's those small decisions where big victories are won, in my mind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I feel like you said, making small changes, celebrating the small wins. We have mastered suffering. In this world, we have mastered suffering. We do it every day, and it's crazy how we are so willing to punish ourselves for the small mistakes and the small, what we would consider failures, but yet we don't celebrate the small wins. So
it's exactly that way.
Negative, right? It's a negative cycle, and it's crazy that we're willing to do that and punish ourselves when, if you can celebrate even recognizing what you would consider a mistake, just celebrate that, hey, that was a mistake. Next time I know differently. Make that a celebration.
Yeah, there's a couple of things there that I find really interesting. Everyone is so scared to fail. Failing is the best thing you can do. So I raced motorbikes for a number of years, and the coaches and the people there were very excited when you'd fall off. Because if you don't fall off, you're not going near the edge. And you need to crash to learn. That was literally one of the things I was taught. You need to crash to learn. Try and crash safely, but you need to crash to learn to go faster. Otherwise, you won't know where the edge is. If you're staying in the safe zone, staying in a comfort zone, there's no success ever built from there. You need to be willing and playful to fall, playful to crash, and just be acceptant of that. We seem to get so tied up in this world of worrying about the future, worrying about what you're doing. And the way I see that is, do you know what worrying does? Makes you suffer twice. Why are we living so far in the future for, in most cases, something that doesn't exist? I mean, we've all done this in the past, and definitely me included. We've done this, get so stressed, and you say you have an argument with someone, or you've had an encounter with someone where you go, oh, that wasn't right. Next time I see them, and this comes up, I'm going to say to them, you know what, you were wrong when you said this, that, and the other. I feel like this is ridiculous, da-da-da. And you get there, and they're like, oh, hello, I haven't seen you for ages. It's amazing to see. And you're completely like, I spent the last full day preparing this fight in my head, and they actually don't care. We spent this worry and this, it's scientifically proven now that worry and stress are so detrimental to your health. It has mass impacts. There's so many good studies. Have a look on YouTube. Particularly if you get a chance, check out the Wim Hof method and the science behind the Wim Hof method. And they go deep into the stress and of how detrimental it is. Worrying and stress and fatigue, all of these things are some of the worst things you can actually do for yourself. And we all do it. And even now, I'm not going to say I don't still do it. There's things that I still worry about. Of course, you're only human. But if we can limit that, it just changes your world.
At this time, we have to pause the podcast because we have so much more to talk about with Clint. Please tune into the next one to finish the complete cast. Lucky for you, both episodes are available now via Anchor, Spotify, Apple, or Luminary. Thanks for joining. We will see you in a moment.